Hello, this is a notice from AT&T Chinese Voice
So
Department.
you've probably gotten a call like this. These are most of the phone calls I get at this point, and if someone tries to actually call me, I usually assume it's a robocall and don't pick up. Consumer Reports estimated that Americans received 48 billion robocalls in 2018. There's so many robots in the system that there's no room left for humans. It's a huge problem and a huge regulatory failure given how controlled the phone system is, but fixing that problem is a lot harder than it looks. You only understand why when you look at the big picture. So there's sort of two separate issues here. There's a technological issue that created the problem and a legal issue that kept us from fixing it. But let's start with the tech problem. Of course, no one was going to bother calling 10,000 people with a rotary phone routed by human switchboard operators just to find one person who would fall for their car insurance scam. Once you get into the 1960s, you start to see auto dialers, which are physical machines that would run through numbers automatically, and telemarketers became a problem pretty quickly, but the closed nature of the phone system made it hard to mount a full-scale spam operation. The phone company controlled the whole network, from the switches to the phone numbers to the wires themselves, so if they really wanted to find you, there was nowhere you could hide. The important change for robocallers didn't come from the hardware, but the network itself, the actual physical material that was carrying the information. See, the original phone system was built with copper wire, which is fine for voice calls, but when the internet happened, suddenly most residential homes were using that same copper to dial onto the internet. It was really slow, and we only got faster speeds by laying new connections with fiber optic cable. That's the modern broadband network we use today. Once they laid that fiber, it was easier just to use fiber for everything, especially since the companies selling you phone service were often the same companies selling you cable and internet. But that fiber didn't get laid everywhere, so now you had a strange mashup of copper networks and fiber networks mixing phone traffic and internet traffic with lots of places to jump from one network to the other. The weird overlap of the two networks worked like a border town. Anytime spammers got in trouble on the phone system, they could switch back to the internet and disappear. There were IP phone systems that could be hacked, anonymous online call services, and dozens of other tricks that robocallers took full advantage of. The basic rule here is that if you're on the internet, you get spam. There are just as many spam emails as there are robocalls, and they're running a lot of the same scams. But we've gotten pretty good at dealing with it in email. Those filters aren't perfect, but they mostly work. So why can't we do that with robocalls? This is where the legal problem comes in. It turns out there's a specific law that has stopped phone companies from treating robocalls like spam, passed before computers even existed. The Communications Act of 1934 was passed after the government realized that Bell Telephone was going to be the only phone company in the country, and without some kind of regulation, there was nothing to stop them from jacking up prices or manipulating service. So a law was written to keep the company in line. In particular, the Communications Act made it illegal to subject any particular person, class of persons, or locality to any undue or unreasonable prejudice or disadvantage. In other words, they had to provide the same phone service to everyone at a fair price. So that rule's really important. Without that regulation, the phone company could decide that every call to a certain town was going to count as long distance, or refuse phone service to people if they thought they were going to use it for something the company didn't like. But carriers also took the rule to mean they had to deliver every call, even the ones that looked sketchy. If they got it wrong and blocked a real person, it could look an awful lot like unreasonable prejudice. That meant that for years, the best you could do to fight robocalls was installing a third-party app on your phone. As long as carriers were still delivering the call, they didn't mind if an app blocked it for you. But you still had to deal with calls as they came in, some of the apps cost money, and it was hard to tell the good ones from the bad ones. This summer, the FCC finally stepped in. On June 6, 2019, the commission voted to affirm robocall blocking by default, basically promising that they wouldn't sue carriers for blocking robocalls before they're delivered. Most carriers are already offering services that will block the calls up front, although the options vary from company to company, and sometimes you still have to opt in. Now, it's too early to say that we've solved the robocall problem. Carriers are actively blocking calls now, which is great, but it means robocallers are getting more serious about evading the filters, which also means filters have to get better just to keep pace. It's a whole new arms race, and with the FCC out of the way, it's just getting started. So if you want a little more information about what you can do to get robocalls off your phone, my friend Jake did a step-by-step guide of exactly what you need to be looking for. Otherwise, thanks for watching.